I snooped through my husband's emails looking for an affair. Instead, I discovered a medical secret he was hiding. I, 34F, have been married to my husband for almost 8 years. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but I've always trusted him. At least, I thought I did until 3 months ago. It started with small changes. He began mentioning a new coworker during dinner conversations. Nothing alarming at first, just casual references about projects they were working on together. But over time, I noticed her name coming up more frequently. He'd laugh while telling stories about her jokes or mention how she had the same obscure taste in music as him. The kind of things that make you take notice. I'm not typically the jealous type, but something felt off. Maybe it was the way his eyes lit up when he talked about her, or how he started working late more often. Always with the explanation that they were finishing up an important project. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut, telling myself I was overreacting. Then came the text messages. I happened to glance at his phone one evening when a notification popped up. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I have something to show you that will blow your mind. Not exactly incriminating, but intimate enough to make my stomach knot. When I casually asked about it, he said it was just about a work presentation they were preparing. His explanation made sense, but he seemed slightly flustered, quickly changing the subject. That night, I couldn't sleep, staring at the ceiling while he snored peacefully beside me. A week later, I noticed he'd started taking his phone into the bathroom during showers, something he'd never done before. He also began working on his laptop in our home office with the door closed, rather than at the kitchen table like usual. Each new behavior added another brick to the wall of suspicion building in my mind. I'm not proud of what I did next, but fear and insecurity can drive you to cross lines you never thought you would. While he was out running errands, I logged into his email account. We've always known each other's passwords, not because we snooped, but because we shared everything. Or so I thought. My hands trembled as I typed in his password, half hoping I wouldn't find anything, half expecting to uncover the betrayal I feared. I searched for her name in his inbox, holding my breath. The results loaded and my heart sank. Dozens of emails, many exchanged after work hours, some on weekends. I clicked on the most recent thread, bracing myself for what I might read. What I found wasn't what I expected. There were no declarations of love, no plans for secret rendezvous, no inappropriate photos. Instead, I found detailed discussions about a surprise party. My surprise party. For my upcoming birthday. As I read through more emails, the full picture emerged. My husband and his coworker weren't having an affair. She was helping him plan an elaborate celebration for me. She had connections to a local band I loved, access to a beautiful venue through her family, and apparently exceptional party planning skills. The projects they were working on after hours? Figuring out the guest list, decorations, and tracking down friends from my college days. The something that would blow my mind. She'd managed to get my favorite author, who was doing a signing in our city, to make an appearance at the party. Relief washed over me, instantly followed by shame. I had suspected the worst of the person who was actually going to extraordinary lengths to make me happy. I closed the email and tried to compose myself, wrestling with whether I should confess my snooping or pretend it never happened. But as I was about to log out, another email notification popped up. Not from the coworker, but from someone whose name I didn't recognize. The subject line read, help with the situation. Curiosity overrode my guilt, and I clicked. I understand how difficult this is for you, the email began. Finding out about your wife's condition must be devastating. I've been through something similar with my partner, and I know how isolating it can feel. The support group meets next Thursday at the community center. Many of us find it helpful to talk with others who understand. No pressure, just know you're not alone in this. My wife's condition? I read the email again, confusion replacing my earlier relief. I scrolled down to see the previous messages in the thread. My husband had written, I don't know how to handle this. The doctors are still running tests, but they mentioned the possibility of early-onset Alzheimer's. She's so young, only 34. I haven't told her the full extent of their concerns yet. Sometimes she seems completely fine, then she'll forget entire conversations we had just hours before. Last week, she couldn't remember how to get to the grocery store we've been going to for years. I'm terrified of what this means for our future for her. I don't know how to tell our families, our friends. I feel like I'm drowning. I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was reading. Early-onset Alzheimer's? Me. There had to be a mistake. Yes, I'd been forgetful lately. Keys misplaced, appointments overlooked, names temporarily escaping me. But that was just stress and sleep deprivation, wasn't it? Then fragments of memories started resurfacing. The concerned look on my husband's face when I couldn't remember our dinner plans with his parents. The doctor's appointment he'd insisted I attend, which I'd dismissed as an overreaction to normal forgetfulness. His patient repetition of stories and information I apparently should have remembered. My mind raced back to other incidents. Finding my phone in the refrigerator, showing up for lunch with a friend on the wrong day, the increasing reliance on my calendar app for things I use to keep track of mentally. I'd attributed these lapses to being overwhelmed at work, to normal aging, to anything but a serious neurological condition. As I kept reading through the email thread, I discovered that my husband had been connecting with support groups, researching clinical trials, and consulting specialists, all while shielding me from the frightening possibilities until there was a definitive diagnosis. The birthday party suddenly took on a new meaning. Was he trying to create one last perfect memory before everything changed? The thought brought tears to my eyes. I logged out of his email and sat in silence, trying to reconcile this new reality. My husband wasn't betraying me with another woman. He was carrying a burden I hadn't even known existed, protecting me while seeking help for himself. When I heard his key in the door, I made a split-second decision. I wouldn't confront him about what I'd discovered. Not yet. He was waiting for more definitive answers before sharing his fears with me. I would respect that, difficult as it would be to pretend I didn't know. He walked in with grocery bags, smiling as he always did. "Hey you. Did you get some rest while I was out?" "Yes," I lied, helping him with the bags. "I feel much better." Over the next few weeks, I paid closer attention to my own behavior, noticing slips I'd previously dismissed. I also watched him. The way he casually reminded me of things without making it obvious, how he'd started labeling drawers in the kitchen, the notes he left around the house disguised as love messages but serving as gentle memory prompts. The day of my birthday arrived, and I genuinely managed to act surprised when we pulled up to the venue. The party was everything the emails had described. My favorite music, beloved faces from various chapters of my life, thoughtful details that reflected my personality and interests. His coworker was there, of course. She embraced me warmly, and I felt a pang of guilt for having suspected her of something nefarious when she'd been such a supportive friend to my husband and, by extension, to me. During a quiet moment at the party, my husband led me outside to a small garden. He seemed nervous, adjusting his glasses repeatedly, a habit from our early dating days that only emerged when he was anxious. "I have something to tell you," he said, taking both my hands in his. "I've been waiting for the right time, and I wanted tonight to be perfect before telling me about the tests," I finished for him. Surprise flickered across his face, followed by confusion. "You know," I nodded, finally letting tears fall. "I found the emails. I'm so sorry, I thought something else was happening. I invaded your privacy, and instead I found out you've been carrying this alone." He pulled me into his arms, his body shaking slightly. "I was trying to protect you until we knew for sure. The final results came yesterday. That's why I wanted to talk tonight." My heart raced as I pulled back to look into his eyes, preparing myself for the worst. "It's not Alzheimer's," he said, his voice breaking with relief. "The neurologist confirmed it's actually a treatable condition, a vitamin B12 deficiency that's been affecting your neurological function. It's been mimicking dementia symptoms, but it's completely reversible with treatment." I couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the emotional whiplash of fear and relief. "The treatment is straightforward, injections at first, then supplements," he continued. "The doctor says you should see improvement within weeks, and a full recovery is expected." I laughed through my tears, the weight of a future I'd briefly imagined lifting from my shoulders. "So I'm not losing my mind?" "No more than usual," he teased gently, wiping away my tears. "But you did give us quite a scare." As we held each other in that quiet garden, party sounds muffled in the background, I reflected on the journey of the past few months. My suspicion had led me to a truth, just not the one I had feared. Instead of discovering infidelity, I'd uncovered the depth of my husband's love, his willingness to carry a burden alone while trying to shield me from pain. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," he said. "I didn't want to frighten you with possibilities until we had answers." "And I'm sorry I doubted you," I replied. "I should have trusted that there was an explanation." He smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "We should probably both work on our communication." "Agreed. No more secrets, even when we're trying to protect each other." We rejoined the party, and I saw everything through new eyes, not just as a celebration of my birth, but as a celebration of possibilities, of the future we still had together, of the love that sustained us even when fear and misunderstanding threatened to pull us apart. Later that night, after our guests had departed, I sent a thank you text to his coworker. "Not just for the party," I wrote, "but for being there for him when he needed someone to talk to. I'm grateful he has friends like you." Her response came quickly. "He adores you, you know. Never doubted it for a second. The way he talks about you. We should all be so lucky to be loved like that." The next morning, I made an appointment for my first B12 injection. As I marked it on our shared calendar, I noticed my husband had already added it, along with a note. "First day of the rest of our lives. Life isn't always what it seems on the surface. Sometimes our greatest fears lead us to unexpected truths. Sometimes the story we tell ourselves isn't the one actually unfolding. And sometimes, what looks like betrayal from one angle is revealed to be love from another." If there's anything I've learned from this experience, it's that relationships are complex puzzles of perception, communication, and trust. My husband's innocent friendship had indeed hidden something from me. Not an affair, but a burden of worry he'd been shouldering alone. And in discovering that truth, I found not the end of our story, but a new beginning.